every once in a while, you have the privilege of spending time with somebody who you may only have run into once or twice in your entire life. And that describes the nature of our contact over the years, because I have only perhaps run into you and about once or twice in all the time I was in Brentwood. And therefore, I'm going to ask you to help me with this introduction. What's your full name? How are you known in the district?
Well, my full name is Laurie Ann Ashdown, but I'm known as Ann Ashdown, my middle name.
I see. Okay. Where did Ann come from? Was that somebody in the family?
Yes, my mother's name, my mother's middle name.
Okay. Are you, you living in Brentwood now, are you?
Yes, I am.
And what's your family situation at present?
Well, I'm a widow
Mm-hmm.
and living alone. My son is married. He and his family live around Konkoma.
You have one son, do you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So they're close then, so you get to see them occasionally?
Oh, yes, sir. Well, in fact, my son works in the district.
Oh, all right. And where does he work?
He was, excuse me, he's in charge of the Loretta Park Warehouse, the athletic division.
Ah, I see. Tell me a little bit about your husband. When did your husband pass away?
He passed away New Year's Eve, 1981. He also was a school district employee. In fact, a lot of the people that may be looking at this one might remember him as Al, the Merry Mailman. He was in the mail department from 1962 until he died in 81. 81.
How did you and Al meet?
On a blind date.
And where would that have taken place?
Well, that's when I was living in Williston Park, and he lived in Hempstead. And a friend of mine that I worked with, she set up this blind date, and Al was my blind date. And we hit it off. We were married a long time.
How long were you married?
28 years.
Was his death sudden and unexpected, or?
Well, he was a man that never complained.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because he had a mother-in-law who was a hypochondriac, so he never complained. And when he did complain, it was too late. He had cancer of the bone. And within 6 months, he was gone.
Oh.
So he went too fast for me. I mean, we never had a chance. We had plans. We wanted to retire together and things we were going to do. We couldn't do it.
Of course.
So.
I'm sorry. Tell me about your son. Your son went through the Brentwood schools, then, I guess.
Well, he went to North Junior High to, 7th grade. And things were starting to change. And we sent him to Eastern Military School.
Mm-hmm.
And he graduated from there.
That's up in Cold Spring Harbor, is that the one?
It's, well, it's not there anymore.
It's not there anymore.
But, yes, it is.
Beautiful school.
It was, yes. It was a beautiful school. Right now, I think it's a condominium or something.
Yeah. What's your son's full name?
John Lawrence.
And he's married and he has children?
He is married to Cheryl, and then I have 3 great-grandchildren. Nicole, she's 19. Krista, she's 14. And then John Jr., he's 11.
Now, these are your grandchildren?
My grandchildren.
Your grandchildren, okay.
My grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And they must be as, I was going to ask you about their personalities, about the difference between the kids. What differences do you see? And they're going to listen to this now, so, you want to...
Not really too much.
The ages of the children are?
19, 14, and 11.
Okay.
I happen to think they're beautiful. Well, my grandson is handsome. He'd be very upset if I said beautiful. But my granddaughters are, to me, they're gorgeous.
Yes.
And I'm a grandmother.
Of course. Of course. You're entitled to brag anyway. What are their talent? What are their interests in school and in
Nicole and Krista, we used to love to dance. And they went to a school, Suzanne's Dance. And now Nicole she graduated from Ross High School 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Krista and Johnny go to, I think it's Connecticut School District. I think that's where they're going now. And Kristen was into dancing. Johnny, he likes soccer and sports. He's more of a sports thing. Right now, he's got one of those scooters that I'm not too happy about, but he's pretty cautious on it.
Was your son an athlete in school? Was he interested?
Not really. He did. He joined the football team, but he never really was that interested. He loves sports, and he's interested in sports, and he'll watch them. In fact, the games are always on in their house, but he was never really too active in sports.
What about your husband and yourself? What were the things that you had that you were passionate about? What do you love to do?
Well, me,
Yeah.
I love to dance.
Do you?
The ballroom dancing. Not tap dancing, but I love the ballroom dance. And my husband, he was into sports. In fact, he was on the semi-pro baseball team
Okay.
in Hampstead.
So it's not too much of a mystery then that they're there in the family. You see the grandchildren with certain
Yeah,
interests.
I think so, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, they do. They do have that, yeah.
What kind of a kid were you when you were in school?
Well, I guess I was normal, I guess. I was interested in church. I mean, we went to Christian Endeavor meetings, and I was a Sunday school teacher there once I became a member of the church. And we used to do school plays and church things, And more or less it was now with our own crowd that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the church group.
Okay. Well, I guess that's where the dance and the drama began to take hold.
Yeah.
Can you share with us some of your earliest childhood memories?
My earliest childhood memories. Well, there's one that I really don't remember, but I remember my mother talking about it. When I was 2 years old, my father took me in one of these open airplanes, took me up in the airplane.
That's a biplane.
Biplane,
Okay.
yes. And I love to fly. So my mother didn't want me to go. And
Was that on Long Island here at a field?
Yes, it was. It was maybe in Queens.
Uh-huh.
Or it could have been in Roosevelt Field.
All right.
I'm really not sure. I know someplace that my father, he wanted to take his daughter up in an airplane.
Now, was he a passenger or was he flying?
He was a passenger. He was learning to fly at one time, but he gave it up when he married my mother.
Uh-huh.
She didn't want him flying anymore.
No.
Well, in those days, flying was a little bit more dangerous than it is today.
I should say so.
Oh.
Yes. Now, where were you born and when were you born?
I was born July 26, 1930 in Forest Hills at the Jamaica Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in Forest Hills until I was 2 years old. And then we moved to Paisley Park. And in 1940...
Where is that?
Paisley Park is Ozone Park, in that area.
I see.
And in 1940, my dad was one of these National Guard men. And he was on one of the U.S. regiments that got called up for 15 months. And he was supposed to be discharged December 15th, 1941.
Oh.
Guess what happened?
Yes.
And he wasn't home for 5 years.
Yeah.
He was in the service all that time. And all that time, we lived in Forest Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved out of Forest Hills in 49.
Did your dad see service in the military?
Yes, his outfit was activated immediately, and their discharge papers December 15th they got torn up.
Yes.
Like, forget it.
Yes. Yes.
And I remember that
because it was December 7th as the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, and
I remember it so well because my dad was in the military band, and they were playing for Burgess Meredith, who was doing these shows.
USO or the...
Yeah, they're showing the different bases. Mm-hmm. And my dad's band was playing in the band in the studio. And he told us later, the announcer came in and told the guys, hey, guys, we're at war. He heard it right away. And then they announced it on the radio. And I, of course, being my father's daughter, I was listening to him. And it came over the radio saying that Pearl Harbor had been attacked. And I went in and she was doing the dishes with my aunt. And I told her, I says, Mom, we're at war. And I remember my father called 5 minutes later after the program was over. My mother picks up the phone and she says, you don't have to tell me, because I know you're not coming home.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was 5 years.
Wow, and you were actually listening to your dad on the radio
Yes.
perform in the band when the announcement came.
Yeah, he was a French horn player.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, good bandman, good military man.
Mm-hmm. Now, were your mom and dad both born in this country? Or?
My dad was, but my mother was born in Greenock, Scotland.
Oh, and what was her maiden name?
Savage.
I see.
And she came over here in 1926, and she met my dad, and they got married in 29.
And your dad's family had been here. I mean,
Oh, well, my father is a Connecticut Yankee.
I see.
He was born in Ansonia, Connecticut.
I see.
His parents were born here. His grandparents on both sides one was Welsh, came from Wales, and the other grandparents came from England.
I see.
So
did you know your grandparents on both sides of the
No,
family? You didn't.
They were all. I didn't even know my mother's grandmother.
You didn't.
No, she was alive, but she lived in England, so I never met her.
You know, there are a lot of youngsters today who don't have the experience of knowing grandparents. I'm sure you can identify with
Yes.
it. And
Yeah,
because you're a lucky person to know your grandparents and to be able to sit and hear stories such as you're telling us.
that's one thing I've been so grateful for is my son knew both his grandparents.
Yes.
Both sets.
Yes.
So he
And your grandchildren have you to tell them the stories. Do you sit with them? Do you talk to them?
Oh, yeah.
Family history and so on.
They'll ask me questions,
Yes. Yes, great. That's good. What kind of a guy was your dad? You mentioned that he was a French horn player, that he was I guess a serious military man too. And I also want to ask you, did he see active service in one of the campaigns? Was he in Europe?
No, he never got shipped overseas.
Okay.
He was stationed right down here in Sandy Hook. And Fort Hancock.
Mm-hmm.
And then they shipped him out to where our president lived, Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. And that's where he ended, was discharged from there.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually, he was a Con Edison man. He had 37 years in Con Edison when he died.
Okay.
He was there a long time.
Now, was he there before the war as well? Is that where he had worked? So when he came back, they were obliged to give him his position back.
Right.
And then he worked there, I guess, through the balance of the 40s and into the 50s. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He died in 65. So he had 37 years in Con Edison.
Mm-hmm.
He knew electricity from a pole in.
Mm-hmm. What kind of a guy was your dad? What some of your memories of him?
Oh, he was a tease. He would say something to me, and I'd say, I would believe him. Little girl, she believes everything her father tells her. Then I'd look at him, and he'd have this smirk. And I'd say, oh, Daddy. Yeah. But he was a tease. He was a good man.
And
he was a good family man.
And he enjoyed the music, though. He enjoyed.
Oh, yes.
playing.
He loved the music.
Did he only play with large orchestras, or did he have groups of people that he would play small?
Before he married my mother, he had a little, I don't know how big the band was, but they used to play over the radio.
Oh.
And the Tea Garden in Jamaica, I don't think it's there anymore. And then, of course, when he married my mother, he gave up the band. And then he went into the National Guard, and he went into the band there.
Now, I gather that this might have been in the 20s and 30s that you're talking about.
Yes, yeah. It was.
When this is the swing era, when we're watching a show now on PBS about jazz and the growth of jazz as a music in America. That was his era.
Oh, yes, it was.
And if he had a band in that time, during those years, he was riding the crest of a lot of very, very exciting popular music, put it that way. Yeah.
Yes. He loved music. And his favorite military music was the Colonel Bogey. He loved the Comely Bird. I won't say what he used to sing to it, because they had their own words.
What about your mom now? What can you tell us about her? Some of the memories you have, early memories you have of your mother.
Mom was always there. And I don't know what I can say. There's not much I can say about it, because she was always there. If I had to cry or if I had to complain or do something, she was always there.
Yes.
She was not one for hitting me. Her biggest punishment for me when I was a little girl was make me sit in the middle of the kitchen floor in a chair and not move. That was her punishment.
That was a timeout for you.
Right, right.
Then, were you an only child, or did you?
Yes.
You were.
Yes, I was.
So do you think that your attitude on a lot of things that have happened in your life is a result of your being an only child? Do you think that had a big influence on you? Do you think it would have been different if you had brothers and sisters?
I was close to both my parents.
And
I don't know. I never really bothered about it.
Okay.
It didn't bother me about not having a brother or a sister.
Yeah.
I just know that my mother couldn't have any more children.
I see. Was that because of, you mean the birth experience, your birth experience, or health
evidently,
issues?
Because from what my mother told me,
Yes.
when I was 3 years old, she wanted to have another baby. And she told my father, and my father says, you can't have another baby.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
that
it was risky, that it would have been risky. You mentioned being born in a hospital. That was a relatively new thing at that time.
In the 30s?
Prior to, no, I mean the generation before you, a lot of people were born at home, but then people began, in our generation, people began to be born in hospitals.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting, we hear of midwives becoming much more common than they have been for a lot of years. What was life like growing up in your family? What was it like for you?
Good. It was very good. Because my mother took a defense plant job when the war broke out. And of course, my dad was away. And we were living with a great aunt and uncle. And they were good to me. So I was never really alone. I was never left alone. I was never, I couldn't go out and do whatever I wanted. That was not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
But, I had a good life. And when my father was home on leave, my mother always included me. We always, she always got the tickets to go to Broadway shows and things like that. But I always was with them.
Oh.
It wasn't a thing where it was just she and my father.
Yes.
We were a family.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
And you must have had friends in the neighborhood then. This is in Forest Hills, right? Growing.
Yeah, well, my block, there was nobody but my age, but I did have friends from my classes.
Mm-hmm.
And, we used to walk back and forth and stuff, go to each other's houses.
Do you have any memories that come back to you from the war years, during the 40s, during the time your dad was away, being at home and being with Mom?
Oh, not really. The only...
You know what I'm thinking of, Ann? I'm thinking of the rationing and going to the store to buy...
Oh, that, yes. Standing on line. Yes, I remember that. And if you got a pair of nylons, boy, you treated those as kid gloves.
That's right, yes.
Of course, I was, at that time when the war first broke out, I wasn't into the nylons. I was still Bobby Sarker.
Right. Remember the black shades and the air raids and
Oh, yes. Yes, we had those.
Yeah.
And it wasn't... Well, it was just... What we had was just the wardens going around in the blackouts.
Mm-hmm. Were there any people other than your mother and father? You mentioned some elderly people in the family But I wondered, would they have been important influences on your life as adults besides your mother and father? Was there anyone else? Was there a neighbor or a teacher or someone else that you can remember that had a very important influence on your life?
No, I think my parents.
Yeah.
My parents.
Because you mentioned that you didn't have contact with grandparents, so I wondered if there were other adults that you learned from or role model for you.
No, not really.
Okay.
Really.
Now, I'm curious about when you first worked and what made you decide to do what you ultimately did in the Brentwood School District, for example, your choice of career. How come life took you in that direction? Did somebody influence that choice, or was that all up to
My
you?
husband.
I see.
When I first got out of high school, I went to work in the telephone company, and I was in the information bureau, and I worked out of 18th Street in New York, and then I transferred out to Hempstead. That's when I met my husband.
Was that a clerical position in the information
No, I was
bureau?
an operator.
I see.
When I got into Hempstead, I did become an intercept clerk.
What
And
was
that
that
was-
exactly?
When a telephone number was changed or disconnected or a new number, we had to enter them through the pen immediately. And then at the end of the day, we had to use a teletype and type it into the printer.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day we would have them back in for our operators to give out.
Okay.
I don't think they have that kind of a system anymore.
I doubt it, yes.
This was back in the early 50s,
Uh-huh.
so it's quite a while ago.
And you worked out of a Hempstead location.
The
at that
Hempstead,
point.
yeah.
Mhm.
And that's how I met my husband.
I see. Okay. That's when on the blind date.
Right.
Have you been back to visit the old neighborhood in Forest Hills?
No, there's nobody there anymore. And where our house was, it's now an apartment.
That's what I was going
building.
to ask you, if it changed.
Oh, yes. Forest Hills has changed. In fact, it's showing an awful lot of it on the TV lately about Queens Boulevard.
Yes.
I lived a block and a half away from Queens
Oh,
Boulevard.
because of the speed,
It was always like that.
the cars flying by.
Always,
Yeah.
always.
Take your life in your hands to cross the street there.
Yeah, well, I never did because I lived right near the Continental Railroad subway station. So I used to go down one side and up underneath, and I could go up on the other side.
You mentioned growing up as an only child. I wondered, did you have chores that were assigned to you or things that you were responsible for doing in the house that Mom would say, Ann, take care of so-and-so, or she called you Ann,
No.
right?
Yes, she called me in,
Mhm.
yeah. Anyway, you want to do my own laundry.
Mm-hmm.
When we moved into Forest Hills, I was just 10. And I wasn't at the point where they were giving me jobs to do. And my great aunt, she had somebody that came in and cleaned the house, so I didn't have to do that. Make my bed, that I had to do. But I didn't have to do too much in chores.
Okay. All right. Where'd you go to school?
Forest Hills High. I graduated from there.
And you also went to elementary school?
Well, yeah, I went to
school.
PS3 in Forest Hills,
Uh-huh.
and I went to PS 101, where I graduated 8th grade. That was before they brought the junior highs in.
Yes.
They were just starting the idea of the junior highs when I
Right.
went, because I went from up to the 6th grade in PS3, and then they moved me over to 101, which is across the boulevard, and for 7th and 8th grade, which is your junior high years now, right?
What were your favorite subjects in school? And in any of those years, were there certain things?
I loved history.
Uh-huh.
I still do. Still do love history. And math, I was always good in math.
Do you remember any of the teachers you had back then in those years?
Oh, let's see. In 101, I had Miss McDonald. And I'm trying to think of what the one woman's name was. Well, the other thing that I had in PS 101 was my step-great-grandmother was a teacher there.
Oh, really?
Yes, so I had a little hard.
Aha.
All the teachers expected me to be, super smart, and forget it.
Yes. Yeah, that puts a bit of a weight on anybody's shoulders, I
Sure
think,
does.
if you have a father or a mother or a relative that, even as an aide, I would suspect that's there that can listen to the stories and keep an eye on you.
You're right.
Did you, you mentioned that you have a love of history. You were 10 years old around 40. All right, then in the 50s, do you remember that period of time when Senator McCarthy was out looking for communists?
Yes, I
and,
do.
There was the Army
remember that.
McCarthy hearings and so on.
Yeah.
You would have been a teenager at that time, right?
Well, no, I was 1949. I started working.
Oh, oh, that's right. So you're already on your own
Yeah, I was.
in a workplace.
Yeah.
Those were years that those were years of paranoia for the country, or worrying about the spread of communism.
Yeah.
Were you a baseball fan?
No, but I became one when I met my husband.
Or what was he?
He was a Dodger fan.
Oh, so now we're talking the heyday of the Brooklyn Dodgers in those years too.
Yeah, but of course, to give him a little hard time, I became a Giant fan. So, and of course, the Giants, they went out to San Francisco, which my husband could see. He said they were losing money.
Yes.
And then the Dodgers moved out. And my husband was very upset. He says, they were making money here. He says, why did they do that? Because the Giants are out there? And he became a Mets fan when the Mets.
Oh, so he continued his love of baseball.
Oh, yes, he did. But he wasn't a Giants fan. He didn't like them anymore.
Yeah.
But he was a big Mets fan.
Do you remember the? I'm talking now from as an historian, and remembering that both of us have lived through some memorable times. And were you working in the district at the time of the Kennedy assassination, or either of them?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was working in Brentwood. I was working in a fabric store
I see.
at that time, the Fabric City.
But you weren't yet in the district. You
Not
weren't
yet,
working
no.
in the district.
My husband was.
Uh-huh.
He was in the
Yes.
district,
Okay.
and he was trying to get me in.
Mm-hmm.
And then they changed. Oh, excuse me. They changed the rulings about becoming clerical. You had to take a test.
Yes. Yes.
So I had to, wait until to get onto a test,
Okay.
take a test. But
Mm-hmm. I just want to ask you again a personal question about yourself. Would you consider yourself more of a morning person or a night person? Do you like to get up early in the morning, or do you?
well, I get up about 7:30, 8 o'clock.
And that you've done since you
Before
retired.
that, I used to get up at 5:30.
That's right, I was
I
gonna
had to
say.
go to work.
That's right. When you were working, you had to get up early.
Right,
There's no
right.
choice there.
See, the beauty of retirement is I don't have to set the alarm anymore.
That's right.
I just wake up and get up.
Do you have a favorite season, Ann, of the year? Now that you're retired, you can enjoy them all.
Well, spring, summer, early fall, the warm weather. And I love to garden, but I haven't been able to do it for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I hope I can get back to it this coming year.
I want to talk about that with you in a minute. The reason for that, for the snag in your gardening, for example. But go ahead.
Excuse me just a minute.
Sure.
I got a tickle in my throat. Can I have a glass of water?
Oh, you know what? Cough. That's the best way. I don't think we prepared for that, but okay. Thanks, Eric.
When I talk too much.
Your voice gets dry. That's all right. We're gonna take care of that in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, see if you can struggle with a couple of other questions while we're talking. While I'm talking to you, I wondered when you think back over growing up years and all the pleasant memories you've had. Are there certain aromas that bring you right back to a time of life? Is there for example, I say burning leaves, which is not allowed anymore because we're not allowed to burn leaves in the
You're right,
backyard, or certain foods, the aroma of certain foods. They say that
My
aromas
mom's
are
cooking.
your mom's cooking. I was going to say that they say that aromas are a trigger to memories, and I just wondered whether you had any. I've asked you a lot of questions, and that's what I'm skimming through the cards and stalling while we're waiting. Let's see. Did you? Okay, one or two questions about this, and then we'll move on to another category. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We could just run it down.
Okay.
Oh, that's better.
When you finished high school,
Yeah.
you went to work, and that's when you went to work for the telephone company.
Right.
Was that your first paying job? Was that the first job that you ever did?
Well, no, I
you were
worked
paid for?
part-time when I was going to school as a charrette in the movie house
In Forest Hills.
in Forest Hills. Yeah, the Midway Movie House, which was right up in the park from us.
Oh.
Across that, yeah,
Yes.
Boulevard.
Yes.
Queens Boulevard.
Yes. Okay, so do you remember what you got paid there when you worked at the movies? Have any recollection?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
I don't. And I babysat a lot.
You did.
Yeah, I did do a lot of that.
Okay. Did you ever have a scare as a babysitter? Did you ever have a scary experience, or everything went well for you? That's an awesome responsibility.
Well, yeah, once happened to be my minister's daughter, and she had a ring on her finger, and the ring was too tight, and her finger started, swelling up and turning blue. And I tried to get it off with soap, and it wasn't doing any good. Thank heavens we lived around the corner from the man's, so I called my father, and he came over with cutters, and he took the ring off. But the poor kid, her poor little thing. But that's the only scare I ever had.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank
that's scary.
heavens.
That dad was nothing but a phone call away. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
What year did you come to Brentwood? I assume that it was right from Forest Hills after you married.
No.
Okay.
No.
Then straighten me out there.
No. My parents and I moved to Williston Park in 1949. And then I had met my husband. And we got married, and then lived with my mother and father for quite a few years, and then to build up, the deposit for a house and everything. And we moved out here in June of 1957.
Oh.
So we've been here a long time.
And you've seen quite a few changes in Brentwood, too.
Yes, I have.
Why did you come to Brentwood and not someplace else?
It was the house that we liked. We had looked at one house in East Islip. Unfortunately, the bank turned us down because I don't think we ever would have been able to get rid of it. It was only a 4-room house, no basement, and no nothing. But it was what we thought we could afford. But the bank wouldn't approve it because it didn't have double floor. I think that was the reason.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up buying the Chapel Hill house.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I remember.
You remember them? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they opened up, we had come out, and we were going to get the Robin Hill first. And
let me explain for people who are listening who might not know the history. These were in years when Brentwood was growing housing developments like mushrooms.
Right.
Right. There was an enormous amount of...
Applegate was here, and Ferber, was it? Ferber. I mean, they were all building up. But Chapel Hill was up on Motor Parkway, their models. And the Saturday before my husband and I were going to come out to sign for the house, they came out with what we call the Fashion Ranch, which had the attached garage, a full basement, and a dining room, which I was always used to. A dining room. I grew up with a dining room, and I wanted my son to grow up with a dining room. And we came out, we bought that. We were one of the first ones to buy the Fashion Ranch.
Very exciting times. Very exciting times. very dynamic times. Brentwood was growing by leaps and
It
bounds.
sure was. Sure was.
Those were the years when schools were almost every year there was another school under construction.
And my son ended up going to North Elementary. But then when I came into the district, they just opened up Twin Pines. There was 4 schools going at that time, right? Twin Pines and Hemlock and Laurel and East Junior, I think it was, because they had the four buildings that were going up. Then they stopped building.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there was a time when Brentwood had 23,000 kids in the district, and it was the 6th largest school district in the state.
Yeah.
And you were here for those years.
Yes. Yes.
Double session and evening school. And
Yeah. Well, my son started off with only a half day in North Elementary, and then they finally got that all straightened out, and then he went full time.
Were you interviewed when you finally when you came to work in the district? You mentioned the test. Was this a civil service?
Yes, it was the service test.
And then you were interviewed for the position.
By Frank Morrow. Yeah.
All right, Frank Morrow, who was our superintendent for
Oh, and he was a business manager at that time.
business manager at that time.
And he turned out that Frank and his wife when I was hired, we all from the Pine Park warehouse, we all used to go out together.
Oh.
And Frank and his wife used to go with us. So he's more or less a friend.
Yes, yes.
But at that time, he was the boss. You know?
Do you remember anything about the interview? Any exchange or any question that was asked?
Well, when I had taken the test, I did not take the typing. I took the clerk's test. And he sent me to an interview with Dick Avis and, I'm trying to think of his name. He's still alive. Dick Avis, I know, isn't alive anymore. But anyway, Dick Avis interviewed me, and he sat me down at the typewriter, and I looked at the typewriter, and I didn't do very well. He sent me back to Frank Morrow, and I told Frank Morrow, I said, he wants to type this, and I can't type. I can't type fast. You know? So then I ended up in the East Warehouse under Harry Hamilton. I don't know whether anybody remembers him.
I'm sure there are people who remember him. I'm certain
Yeah,
there are.
maybe. And I was...
And what was your job there? What did you do there?
It was clerical work. It was like entering books, inventory, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was only there about a month because my husband, by this time, he was working under Don Vaughn. He was the mailman. And he had told Don Vaughn about me being up here in the East Warehouse. And at the time, the Buildings and Grounds needed another secretary. So I got transferred to the Buildings and Grounds Department, and I was there until I retired.
Oh, wow. That's good. Yeah.
It is good because it was great because we were always busy.
Yeah.
It was never a dull moment. I mean,
And you must have, then some of the people you met became relationships that you continued to enjoy for all the years that you were there.
Yeah.
Good friends. And,
yeah.
Were there any particular things that happened in those early years that you could tell us about that you enjoy remembering? You mentioned the social aspect of it.
Oh, yeah. We used to all get together on a Sunday night and, somebody's house. We go to somebody's house and you just have a good time, dance, and just, joke around, play charades, things like that. We had good times together.
One of the things that I'm prompted to suggest is that I've heard that Brentwood is like one large extended family, that the people who you work with became like part of your extended family.
It was. I think it's changed now.
Do you?
It's changed a lot. But at that time, no. We were all very close.
Even though it was a large district, it's small by comparison to the I guess when you consider the changes that have taken place, it seems much larger than it was, even though there were more youngsters then.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else that you worked for that you haven't mentioned. I guess you've pretty much told us about your
Yeah, well,
entire tenure.
or Don Vaughan, and then Don retired, and John Hines became the superintendent.
Okay.
And I worked for him.
Uh-huh.
And then after he got booted out, I don't want to go into that, then Ken Stubbelow took over.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I retired.
And then you worked for him for a short spell, and then you...
I worked for him until 85.
Okay. Were you as a clerical in the district, you were always, or you also were a member of an organization then?
Yes, CSEA.
The CSEA.
Yeah.
Were you active at any time in that organization?
Yeah, when Frank DeAndrea was president of CSEA, and that's when the men and the girls were all together as one unit. I was corresponding secretary.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, then the Teamsters came in, and the men went with Teamsters, and the girls stayed with CSEA. And then
is that right? The men went with the Teamsters?
Yes,
I was
they did.
not aware of that.
Yes, they did. In fact, my husband and a good friend of ours, Godfrey Miller, were the last two to sign up with Teamsters because they wanted to stay with CSEA.
Mm-hmm.
But they finally did, yeah.
So then there were, for a period of time at least, there were two unions, you might say, two organizations.
Yeah, there was.
Is that something you can fill me in now? Because I wasn't aware. Did that change after a while, and then there became just one?
No, the girls still are not.
Uh-huh.
They're not with Teamsters.
Are the Teamsters still?
Teamsters are still, yeah. My son
district.
is a member of Teamsters.
Okay.
He's still with them.
Right.
The only ones that are in CSEA are the teachers' aides.
I see.
And the girls, I believe, are with the teachers group.
Mm-hmm. With NYSUT, then, under New York State United Teachers, or the BTA?
Yeah, right, the BTA. Yeah, I think they're under BTA.
Okay. Besides that time when you were a corresponding secretary, did the organization ever come to your assistance at any time? Did you ever need the help of the union?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
No.
all right. Let's see what we can. I don't know if you have a philosophy with respect to union activities or union work. Some people have changed their view of unions over the years. I wonder if your definition of union has changed as a result of your participation with CSEA. And
Well, I've always felt, and I still do, I feel that when you're all together, you're better. You have more you can say, more you can, I've always felt that. But they didn't go that way. So.
Well, at times, it became more difficult to not alone to organize, but to think as a united group.
Yeah.
You've known so many people, Ann, and I don't know whether you want to single out any individuals or you're uncomfortable with that, but so many lovable characters and so many wonderful people that you've known over the years.
I guess.
Have any of them made enough of an impact that you would like to just mention them in our interview?
I call them my boys from the buildings and grounds. All of them from the ground crew, the maintenance men. I mean, these are all guys I hired.
Oh, so you did the interview
Oh, no, not the interview, but like doing the paperwork.
Doing the
I did a
paperwork.
lot of the paperwork on a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And on most of them. I still consider them my boys.
Yes. Yes. So there was a closeness, there it is, the family thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You watch out for one another.
Right, because my office was right upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
They were right down below me. We had the ground crew. You had your maintenance crew, your garage, and you had your custodial warehouse. I mean, that all came out of our department.
Yes.
We had to maintain the schools and the grounds and keep, the supplies in there.
Right. Well, there was, I can remember in the early time of my employ in the district, there were some controversial times too, where there were newspaper articles and a lot of things, and you were probably right in the middle of it.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Every day there'd be another reporter asking questions and snooping around about one thing or another going on.
Well, we had the bulldozer thing. And
The bulldozer,
going over there.
the bulldozer that was upstate, supposedly doing a
Yes.
swimming pool someplace. I
Yes,
remember
that
that.
was clearing his grounds. That was Tony Lavelle. And Don Vaughan had given him permission.
Yes.
And it was Sam Clee and with Tony. And George Gale got in there. It was,
And I seem to remember too, then people in the community began to look for things, and there was talk about the site and what was
Yes.
buried in the
Well,
site.
that-
and that. I don't know anything about.
Mike Grant was the one who was after that.
Mhm.
And he and George Legio had a feud going between them
I see.
from the fire department. And in those days, we buildings and grounds used to buy used material, used vehicles from the Army.
Army surplus.
Army surplus, yes. Of course, it was cheaper, and, our department was getting bigger, and they needed more vehicles.
Mhm.
So they would buy these used vehicles, but they were not allowed to, if things broke down, they couldn't junk them. They couldn't sell them, couldn't get rid of them. They had to bury them.
Oh, for goodness sake. That was the law, I guess.
Yes, that was the federal law.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Grant got hold of that, and he made a big stink about it.
Okay.
And at the site, yes, we had a few trucks buried there.
Yes. Yes.
We're out in the back.
Mhm.
But that's with their orders. They had to bury them. We weren't allowed to do anything else with them.
They were in violation of federal law if they had sold.
Right, right.
So then the problem became, what do you do with this? You can't give it away. You can't.
They were told what to do with it. Bury it.
Jeez. Very exciting times.
Yes.
Although at the time to live through it, it may not have been exciting. It was stressful, I'm sure. There came a point in your own personal and professional career when you decided it was time. And we talked a little bit about that before, and it's a very uncomfortable time for you, but you decided to put in your papers and to leave. I think that we talked a little bit about the regrets that you experienced later on. Some people retire before they're ready. You weren't exactly ready, were you?
I wasn't, because with me retiring when I did, I was only 55, and I could not collect on my husband's Social Security until I was 60, which meant I was only getting my pension in the house. Fortunately, my husband had the kind of insurance that the house was free and clear, but I had to pay taxes, and I had to keep the upkeep of the house. But I got my Scotch temper up, and I put in for the 3-year incentive, and I retired. But like I said, it was a mistake. I shouldn't have done it.
Now, what year was this in?
85.
85. All right.
Fortunately, my good friend Godfrey Mailer and his wife from CSEA, they got me a job part-time with CSEA Union, Local 870. So that kind of pulled me out of the hole.
Because you would have been hurting otherwise had
Yes,
you
I
not
would.
not had a
I wouldn't.
yeah.
And because they told me, when I first called the Social Security about my husband, they had told me, well, when you're 60, you can apply for his Social Security. And I shouldn't have gone at 55. I should have waited until 60.
Yeah.
But like I said, my temper got me. So.
Well, things changed to the point where you were just so very dissatisfied with the changes that were
Yeah.
taking place
Yeah.
that you just wouldn't tolerate it. So that's why you made your decision. As impetuous as it might have been, given the hindsight of all these years now, we're looking at 15, 16 years now, did you make the right choice?
Now, yes.
Okay.
Now, yes.
Okay.
Because I am getting the Social Security and everything. So, I've got that coming in. And
But I mean,
my pensions.
But I mean, 16 years after you made that decision, you look back at your reason for leaving. Do you feel that you did the right thing to leave at that time, putting financial considerations aside?
Well, No, I should have waited.
Oh, okay. That's what I was asking. Okay.
I should have waited.
All right.
But
Well, listen, we've all seen people who make decisions sometimes in the heat of the moment without stepping back a little bit. So you know that you're in a lot of good company. Others have made the same decision. And thank goodness you're with us. So looking none the worse for wear. So I guess all things in the end work out.
yeah.
The number of years you worked for the Brentwood School District?
19 and a half.
Okay.
Almost 20 years, yeah.
While you were working for the district, was there time or an interest on your part to do other jobs outside?
No, I enjoyed, I maybe it's because of the department I was in.
Yes.
Because there was always something going on.
Mm-hmm.
I was always busy. So I did enjoy it.
Okay.
Plus, my husband was part of the department. My
Yeah.
son was part of the department.
Right.
So,
Right. So the whole family was really involved in the...
right.
What have you been doing since you retired?
Well, I worked for CSEA for 9 years. And then
Where did you work? Where exactly? Where was the location of the...
down the corner of Moffett Boulevard and Saxon Avenue, they had an office.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked there, and then the president lost the election, and the new president didn't like me, so I was terminated in 95. I really didn't care
No.
because I was set at that time, and it's all right.
So financially you were okay at that from that point on.
Yeah.
Do you volunteer at all? Do you do anything with your time? I know you have grandchildren that you see, and you have family, so that, of course, is a focus of a good deal of.
No,
your
I've
time.
gotten very lazy, to be honest.
Well, let's be honest. Also, in a wider sense, you've also had some health issues that you've had to address,
Well,
and
lately, yes.
and that has required some attention. Tell me, you're using an assist to walk. Tell us what's going on with you right now.
Well, that's because I have arthritis in my left knee.
Mm-hmm.
And due to that caused my right hip to go out and my left hip to go out. So I've had 2 operations there, replacements. And
the most recent one in July of this year, and
Right.
where
I was
now?
operated on in April for the right hip, and then I was operated on again in July for the left hip.
So you're still mending a little bit. You're still
Yeah,
healing after that.
they say it's about 6 months before it went. And another thing, I had to give up smoking.
Oh, so you were a smoker for some years.
Yes, I was.
That's a tough hill to climb, isn't it? Giving up.
Yeah. And I had given it up once before
Mm-hmm.
when my husband was sick and he came out of the hospital. I had stopped smoking for him. But then I got very depressed one night after he had died, and my daughter-in-law had left her pack of cigarettes in the house, and she says, I'm giving it up for Lent. I said, okay. And she left it there, and I started smoking them because I got depressed, and I
Sure.
continued smoking until last November, a year ago November, because that's when I thought I was having a heart attack. I was going from one room to the other, and I couldn't catch my breath. And I had somebody coming into the house, to do my shopping for me. And I told her, I said, get my son on the phone, tell him to get here. I want him to get me an ambulance. I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. Well, that's when I found out that my lungs are clear and I have a weak heart, but it's nothing to be worried about because I'm taking all kinds of medication. And I had to stop smoking.
One of the best gifts you've given yourself is to.
I'm going to be honest. I miss it.
I suspect from people in my own family who have said they will miss it their whole lives, they still miss it. But nevertheless, it's a loving gift to give yourself.
My granddaughter came up to visit me in the hospital the first time, and she said to me, Grandma, I'll stop smoking if you will. I said, okay, I'll make a deal with you. And we made a deal.
Bless her heart. Do you read? Do you enjoy reading?
Yeah, occasionally.
Do you have a Is there a book that you can think of offhand that that has either had a powerful effect upon you or one of the best books you've ever read? Is there something that comes to mind when I say
No,
that?
not really.
No,
Not really. I used to do a lot of reading, but I guess, the only books that I really loved the most was like the books by Terhune. Lad a Dog and Lassie, all those. I love those books.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm a dog lover. So,
Do you have a dog?
yes, I do.
Oh, we haven't
yes,
talked
I
about
have a baby.
Oh, we haven't talked about that.
Oh, yeah, she's a spoiled brat.
What kind of a dog is it?
She's a mixture. Collie Shepherd mixture.
Okay.
But she's a brat. She's a brat. It's my fault. I spoiled her.
Did you have heroes growing up? Anyone you looked up to, either in, a celebrity or someone in public life, or
I guess movie actors. I used to like Cary Grant and John Payne. John Payne, I always swore my husband looked like him. And Kirk Douglas, so them. I liked all of them.
It's the effect of the movies. Of course, every youngster at some point looks up to their own parents as their heroes. Of course, that's understandable. But I wondered if there were other people from the movies or the media at the time. Was there anything that you missed once you left active service, Ann, that you really did miss?
Yeah, I miss not being around the guys. Yeah, and
is there any contact now that you're...
Once in a while. Once in a while. In fact, I just bumped into one of them out here, Richie.
Okay.
Richie Salvatore.
Oh. Out here at the high school.
Yeah, right.
Okay. If you had... This is a tough question, I'll warn you in advance. If you had your whole life to live over again, is there anything that you would want to do differently?
No.
That's a nice thing to be able to say, isn't it?
The only thing I would do differently is have my husband with me now.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, if you could control that.
If I control that.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the only thing.
What were you most, if you look back at the almost 20 years that you worked for the district, what were you most proud of in terms of the work that you did while you were here? What gave you the most sense of satisfaction?
I was mostly in charge of the budget books. And when they came out right, yes.
Good feeling.
Yes.
Is there anything that you would like to have been able to do that you couldn't accomplish, that you would like to have been able to see done before you left, that you weren't able to make happen?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really. No, they were doing pretty good.
Okay. Because you have been in Brentwood for so many years and you have seen so many changes in the district,
Yeah.
what do you see for the future in the district? Is there something that gives you hope or that gives you a concern when you look into the future for the community and for the district?
The thing that really bothers me, and I think I have a house next door to me that's doing it, is there's so many families moving into one house. I mean, I know town of Islip is trying to do something about them. But that does bother me because these people are not paying the taxes. And even though I am getting we've got that STAR program.
Yes.
It's still, we are paying heavy taxes.
Yes.
Especially in the town of Islip. I mean, we've got full assessment.
And knowing that not everyone is bearing an equal share or pulling their weight is upsetting to taxpayers. And that's not something that has just happened, is it? That's something...
No, it's been growing.
It's been growing.
Yeah, from what I understand. But like on my block, we haven't had that problem. But I think we do now. Because I keep on seeing people that keep on going into these houses and they go in the back and it's, and they never, it used to be just a one-family house.
Yes.
And it doesn't look like it is anymore.
And I've asked you so many questions about so many different subjects. I'm wondering if there's an area that we haven't touched on, or there's something that we haven't discussed that we should before we end our time together.
I don't know.
Is there a point that you wanted to make, or suppose there are some young Or let me say there are some young people or some new people coming into the employ of the district, and they see this interview or this piece of the interview at some point. Is there anything in the way of advice you'd like to offer them on how to do your job, or how to hang in there, or how to make it, or how to be successful?
Well, I don't know. I guess it's just hang in there and do your best. And as long as you do that, nobody can come back at you.
Okay. The reason I ask you the question is obviously because you have been successful. You're one of the people who has succeeded in doing what you did, and you're here to tell us about it. So I consider that a success right away. And anything that you could offer in the way of advice?
Well, one thing I would say: don't do what I did. Lose your temper.
That may be very good advice at certain times, because we're all tempted on occasion.
Yes, we are. We are. You can get pushed so far, and it can happen.
And I can't thank you enough for giving us the time to spending with us and telling your story. And I hope you enjoy this while you watch it, when you have a chance to pop it in your VCR at home. Thanks so much.
Thank you.